If I take a look at the image above, I see the word teach, and then in the reflection, I can see the word learn. And to me, that's an important question. Is my job about teaching and pounding my way through material, or is my job about helping people learn and learn things well? Today, I want to talk to you about a fast and effective way to revise your course and recreate an effective course that focuses on the learning. And the first thing I do when I want to do that is something that I call a theory versus practical percentage. What I do is I take out my course outline and a pen, and I start to think about my course, and I start to picture it and how it applies to the real world, and if there is a direct application to the workforce or not. And then I start to think about percentages and what percentage of my course is a direct practical application and what percentage is a theory. And I should be able to come up with some kind of a number, 70 for practical, 30 theory. Maybe it's 100% theory in my course, or maybe it's 100% practical. But I should be able to come up with some kind of a number that will help me understand the level of practical versus theory. After I do that, I do outcome matching. And in order to do outcome matching, I take out a list of my outcomes and I look at those first words in my outcomes. Those first words are usually verbs, and they sort of tell me what kind of thinking the student is doing. They really look at the theory versus the practical just in those words. I pull out a Bloom's taxonomy sheet to help me as I start to reword some of my outcomes. And if I look at the words at the bottom of Bloom's taxonomy, they're more of theory type words: explain, identify, discuss kind of things. And so these words, if I have a heavy theory course, are going to show up more often on my course outline. But if I have a course that's more practical, maybe 70% practical, I should see different words showing up, words that are up in the higher end thinking. And that's when it sort of gets a little bit exciting. I can start to revise some of these outcomes and come up with some words that are actually more accurate based on the workforce. And so I want to see words like design and construct, produce something, experiment, or create. And it sort of becomes exciting where as my outcomes take on new meaning based on sort of the real world approach to my course, then everything sort of takes on that feel that I'm direct application to the real world. Once I've matched up those outcomes, I need to choose workforce activities. What I do is I think of the workforce and the career that my course is geared towards, and I start to picture what goes on in the workforce and in that career. And as I do that, I should be able to come up with some activities that real people actually do in that career. And it may be one or two, it may be as many as 10, but I should be able to come up with these key activities that the workforce is actually doing that relate to my course. And then I should be able to go back to those outcomes that I've just revised, and I should be able to place those activities and realize that a lot of those activities are covering many of those outcomes that I've come up with. And if I see that the activity isn't covering those outcomes, then I should probably choose an activity. But more often than not, I can see if I choose effective activities that they are in fact covering many of the outcomes in the course outline. Once I've chosen those workforce activities, it's time to move into the learning period. And so I need to take those activities and I need to, try to recreate them in the classroom and make them work well in the classroom. But then I move into this learning period. And the learning period is an extended period of time. It's actually the longest period of time possible. And I start right away with the practical approach to this. I take that activity, and as soon as I can, I start with it. I start with that activity that's designed on the based right on the work world. And then I realize that students may need theory as we go and supplement that. And sometimes this isn't possible. Sometimes you need to start with theory if there's safety issues or if they're going to be lost if you don't. But as soon as you can, get to that practical activity and get them working on it. And as soon as they have a gap in their knowledge, then they're gonna be able to add that theory when they need it, because some students are going to have more theory than others already coming into this into this course. And so you can just add it whenever they need it. And in order to do that, I try to make it available at all times so that they can get some of that theory on their own terms, or easily find it. And I just put it in spots that's really easy to find, on a website or in some kind of a package. So after I start with this very practical theory approach, theory being supplemented, I then move into, I get them just risking and trying new things, and I really try and push them to just complete the task. And I don't assign marks when I do that, because sometimes marks are punishing, and they won't try as hard if there's marks associated with it. So I hold off on the marks, and I just use this extended period of time for them to learn. And I know sometimes that's hard in a short course, but I spend as much time as possible allowing them to learn, and then I supply them with feedback along the way. And I make sure the feedback is very effective and specific. If I'm quiet during this time, then they're not going to learn. So I need to tell them what is working well here, and what needs to improve, and then most importantly, how to improve it. And that's really effective feedback for them throughout the course. Another thing I do is exemplars, and I use a continuum. And so in the example here, these circles may be just one project or one assignment, and so the example number 1 is a poor example, and so it would be a D. And so each example sort of gets better and better until you get to the A+ example. And so what students can do as they're working on their project, and it doesn't matter if it's written or on paper or they're creating a project, they can go up to this continuum and measure for themselves where they see they're at on this continuum. And under the continuum, there's an explanation of it, so they can really get a good feel and good feedback for that. After the learning period comes the assessment period, and this is also a key period. What I want to do here is actually choose exactly the same assessments or activities that I had in the learning period, and I want to use those activities to create their marks. And so I'm not going to choose an assessment tool that I wasn't using before. If we were working on a project and creating and building something, I'm not suddenly going to give them, a written multiple choice test if I wasn't doing that before. So I need to use those same activities that are based on the real world, and so their marks suddenly make sense. I'm going to give them a marking guide ahead of time, and when I do that, I need to remember those outcomes I came up with. As I change those words, I need to make sure that as I'm marking, I'm focusing on the actual outcomes on the course, and making sure that they there's harmony there, so that I'm marking basically what I was teaching on. So after I give them that marking guide, I'm going to actually mark the activity and the assessment, and they're going to get feedback again. And some people, why do we do that? Because this is sort of at the end. They've done all the learning, and this is at the end where we've marked it. But I still think they need that feedback in order to learn, because that's what we're all about here, is making sure that they learn this material as thoroughly as possible. The last important thing that I do in this assessment period is make sure that if a latter assessment, one that's coming up later, builds on a previous one, then I can actually take those newer marks and replace some of the earlier assessment marks. And I think that's important, just as the student learns and masters a concept, that their marks should reflect their mastery of that concept. I should note that if there were outcomes that were not covered specifically by those activities that you designed, you could have a small theory test or assignment of some kind to cover those outcomes. The last period is the grading period, and for me it's the easiest period. I just take and accumulate all the assessment period marks, and I weight them properly, and then I come up with a grade for the course. And it's just it's the short and easy period at the end of the course. And I think when you run a course like this, students just get a real good feeling that and everything is authentic, right from the outcomes to the activities, right into the marking itself. There's just a real authentic feel to the course.